You started a cereal company.
To us, that means like taking on mainstream cereal. So we want to create a brand that like really connects and like properly disrupts this category.
Yeah.
If I showed you our cost of goods when we started the business, you'd probably scream. It was tough to make this product. We went to every manufacturer we could. No one can make it. You're too small. It just can't be done. We had to create the product ourselves. We're still figuring it out. We have benefited so much by having no rules. Just focus on ideas, try stuff, make mistakes, go from there.
Hello, Zamar. Good connection.
Yeah,
that was a good start.
Great stuff.
Thank you for joining me, Kit. Really exciting to kind of hear the story of Surreal. You started a cereal company.
Yeah.
Most people dream. I probably had that dream when I was 5 years old, eating my favorite cereal, thinking, wow, one day I'm going to start a cereal company. But you did it. How? Tell us.
It was a bit of a winding journey. So I wanted to start a business with my mate Jack, and we looked at loads of stuff. Bin bags. I could bore you about bin bags another time. We got into water fountains for a little bit, and then we came on to cereal, and that was the first idea that hooked us emotionally. And when we looked at it, we felt like as kids, we loved cereal. And this kind of felt like whenever we spoke to anyone, what they were getting, but full of flavor, full of personality, free toys, cartoons, back a pack, full of sugar. And then we felt like you grow up, before you know it, stuck behind a desk, 30 years old, eating a bowl of bran flakes. And so we were like, it was the customer journey where we were like, there's a really like, we can like practically see why this is exciting, but emotionally, like we're bought in. So today what we do, we just take the kids' childhood cereals you loved growing up and give them a grown-up reboot. So childhood taste, but high protein, zero sugar.
Fantastic. I'm a testament. Every morning I start my day with cereal.
Nice.
How did you end up here? Kit, what's your journey to becoming an entrepreneur?
I wouldn't say it's an obvious journey. So born and raised in Scotland, left school like everyone, clueless about what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. So I studied history, which I'm putting to good use. But I think I left uni and I just had this affinity towards brands. Don't know why, but I just love brands. So I applied to every grad scheme you could think of. They all said no. So I then came across this business called Vita Coco, which was a coconut water brand, which back then felt like alien to the market. But I was just in. Like the minute I met them, like the energy, I would take any role at that company. So I did. I took a role which I didn't know what it was. I ended up in a luminous green jacket, walking streets of London, selling coconut water to convenience stores. And I learned a lot about resilience in it. I wasn't a particularly good salesman. So I learned a lot there. And I think over time, I got to see the full aspect of that business so I started in sales, I moved to marketing, we worked with ops, we worked with finance. And that's probably where we cut our teeth of what does a startup look like and what does it take?
I love it. And you went on to build your own. Talk to me about brand, because obviously Vita Coco was had a very prolific brand, and at Surreal, you guys have a very bold, very humorous, very brave brand that you're building. It's a real challenger. Obviously, you're doing something different in terms of differentiation in market with zero sugar and high protein. But talk to me about the importance of brand and how you think about brand building.
We're still figuring it out. Look, we're 2.5 years in. I think we have benefited so much by having no rules. Like it is so liberating when no one cares about your business. Your business isn't even really a business. So you can basically do whatever you want. And I think we always put a focus at the start on like, just focus on ideas, try stuff, make mistakes, go from there. I was saying to someone the other day, no one remembers bad marketing. And we do loads and loads of bad marketing. We do bad marketing weekly, but no one remembers it. But it's taking those risks that gives you the chance of that like one memorable moment, that bit that jumps out in people's minds.
I think the one thing that I've always admired seeing Surreal is obviously there's a ability to execute quickly, to test things. As you say, there's you're not risk averse by any means, but collaborations and partnerships has been a big part of that as well, where you've been able to buddy up with some of the like-minded challenger brands. Talk to me about how you think about those collaborations and those partnerships and why they've been so important for Surreal.
Yeah, I wish I could say there's a strategy. You'll pick up there's not a lot of strategy at Surreal, but we so there was this brand Wild, if you know, healthy deodorant.
Of course.
We just looked up to them. We wanted to do something with them, and we came up with some fairly stupid, funny billboards, and they went for it. And billboards blew up, and we were immediately like, wow, this has impact. We're reaching like new audiences, but it's also creating a connection. From there, we just focused on ideas. So we'll always think of something and then go to the brand, not the other way around. And 9 times out of 10, if you go to someone with a track record and a fleshed out idea, they'll usually say yes.
You said we. Talk about the team. What is the structure? What are you doing differently in terms of building that team? Because something's working. You guys are making such an impact in the market. How do you think about team and culture? And talk to us about the structure of that team today. I understand there's a comedian on your team.
There's a comedian on the team and a few failed comedians. But again, I think we learned a lot from where we were before in terms of like what good looks like from a culture perspective. So we've tried to take a lot of the fun from Vita Coco into Surreal, and fun isn't it's not beers at the dartboard. We do have a dartboard, but it's empowering people just to make mistakes. Like, our job is honestly just to get out of people's way, let them make mistakes, and then be there to help them solve it afterwards. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Vita Coco, I gave away 1 million cases of coconut water by accident, right? So 6 million bottles of coconut water, which at the time was more than we sold a year.
Wow.
So over a weekend, this happened. I won't go into the details of how I did it, but I was terrified. And I came into work Monday morning, and the very, very head of the business, guy called Giles, just took me into a room and said, it's happened. Don't worry about it. How are we going to fix it? And how can we help you? And that was like, that will always stick with me, because the lack of a blame culture, that is so empowering when people just go out there and swing for the rafters. And let's face it, our business isn't big enough or significant enough that it's going to be killed from taking risks. Our business will die because no one takes risks.
I love it. Talk about D2C and retail, because you started off as D2C. You've done a great job getting people to really break a behavior. Most people don't buy cereal online. You buy cereal when you're in the supermarket. You guys started with D2C, but you didn't stay D2C. I see so many D2C brands, they're quite strong in their mind that they have to be direct to consumer, but you guys have really embraced retail, especially in the last year or so. And so talk to us about those partnerships with the likes of Sainsbury's and Whole Foods and Holland and Barrett. Talk to you about why retail is important and how you think about it going forward. And maybe if there's any lessons or secrets you can share for others who are thinking about retail listings, talk to us about what you've learned there.
Yeah, this is going to be a good segment because I didn't do anything to do with retail. So I'll steal my co-founder's thunder. But how do we think about our business? It's just we're a cereal company. We're a modern cereal company. So we just want to be where people buy cereal. It's that simple. D2C was this amazing test and learn channel for us that suddenly had some scale to it as well. And so we never thought we'd be able to sell the amount of cereal we could online, but it was always natural that we wanted to be in retail. And I think having had that D2C business was so powerful. When we spoke to the Sainsbury's or Holland and Barrett, I think the big things that really moved the needle is we knew exactly who our customer was. Not kind of, we knew everything about our customer because we spoke to them every week. We knew how to improve our product. So we're on version 5, technically 35, but we knew all this stuff. And then we went to retail and we had the stats. So the big stats were what we were selling. And by the way, we're the fastest growing cereal in all cereal, value and percentage. And then also we were incremental to the category. So we could ask our customers, were you buying cereal before? The majority answered no. And that's golden insight for Sainsbury's. And so, we had to learn loads to be able to present a really compelling story for why we made sense in retail.
You mentioned version 5 of the product, or probably the reality version 35 or maybe 305. That probably surprises people to think, a business at your scale already, and, it's still early into the journey, but it's the fastest growing cereal brand in the UK, but you're still iterating. How do you think about that culture of iteration? How do you think about product development and continually evolving the product based on that customer feedback?
Hugely important. And I think Jack and I's background was never product, which is a blessing and a curse. blessing because we just go in like first principles. We always want the product to get better. We're never wedded to the recipe we've created. And, you know, it's not, unfortunately, grandmother's recipe passed down through the generations. But it means you're just constantly trying to get better. And if you've got this source of data from your D2C, you're doing your customers a disservice if you're not listening. So what does good look like? Feedback from customers, development, trial with customers, launch. And we're lucky enough to have that data, so it's our responsibility to use it.
I know from my time working with so many entrepreneurs is a great entrepreneur takes risks, which we talked about, but pivots in particular as well, where, you know, they have a vision on how they want to do something, or they think something's going to work, and then they get this feedback and they realize it's not maybe not the market fit, or customers are telling them something different. How do you think about those kind of pivotal decisions? How do you think about those pivotal moments in the business in the last few years that you've had to make, where if you hadn't taken them, you probably wouldn't be where you are today?
A fairly pivotal one pre-business was, so we really struggled to make this product. I told Jack it was going to take 3 months. It took 18. And he always takes the piss out of me for it. But it was tough to make this product. We went to every manufacturer we could, Europe and UK. No one can make it. Either a combination of you're too small, which we were, or it just can't be done. And so we had to create the product ourselves. And that meant going to university. I made up the recipe on a spreadsheet. And blagged our way into university. And that was pretty pivotal. Why? Because it cost us a lot of money that we wouldn't have had to spend if we just went and got a blanket product off a manufacturer, but we knew that product wasn't good enough. So if I showed you our cost of goods when we started the business, you'd probably scream. But it was the right decision. It had to be a great product that we understood. And then over time, we've been able to make it.
I think that's key to
more sustainable.
Probably summer success. And certainly with Surreal, if you've got a great product, everything starts there. Talking about uncertainty, as I think about the greatest entrepreneurs always have resilience, and they have to have resilience through those periods of uncertainty. Talk about how you handle uncertainty, talk about how you handle stress, and those days where things aren't going quite so well, or those months where perhaps sales targets haven't been reached, or the highs you wanted to make haven't happened quick enough, or someone moves on from the business, whatever it may be. Talking about how you handle that stress and that resilience.
Poorly, but better and better. And that's been probably our biggest learning curve. Like from our previous businesses, we knew what a startup looked like. But let's face it, we didn't have that, the buck stops with you responsibility. And I think that can weigh heavy. The one, having a co-founder for me is you're in a relationship, right? And actually that support is
invaluable.
I'm in awe of people doing it on their own, put it that way. And the second is, and this runs across the team, is we are just making cereal and trying to make people laugh, fundamentally, right? And I think if we think about that long enough, we can generally snap out of it. Perspective is always useful.
Getting to know you in the last few years, Kit, you're always incredibly calm, always very, very chilled. Whenever I see you, I feel like I walk away more calm and more chilled.
You should see what's going on
You're
inside.
doing something right. Even on the exterior, you're very calm. Talk to me about how you keep your motivation high, because you talked a little about resilience and uncertainty, but what motivates you every morning to get out of bed? I know you have a young family. How do you keep that motivation really high? In particular, say when there's, often challenges, not everything, as most people know with entrepreneurship, it's ups and downs, but what keeps you really motivated?
It's changed is the truth. I think when you start out, it's probably more external, your motivation. Let's face it. The more and more I've done a lot of think about it. It's just working with great people. And it raises the bar for everyone. So honestly, what motivates me is going to work. I love it there. It's fun and engaging, and that's how it should feel. But I'm also surrounded by amazing people where there's always that little bit of well, if they're that great, I need to be up to it. And I think everyone always talks about enjoy the journey, and it's taken us a long time to figure out what we're doing right now is the great bit. And success or failure will be an outcome, but we find that pretty motivating just to enjoy it.
Talk about kids, because you have a kid. You have another one coming. That's a tough thing for any entrepreneur to balance, having a young family and also a young, nascent, fast-growing business. how do you think about managing the two, and how much do you think, you talk about your motivation changing? I don't think entrepreneurs talk enough sometimes about family, and especially those who are raising young families, how tough that is and the toll that takes. I would think it's so impressive when I see entrepreneurs who are building very, very fast growth businesses and raising families. So talk to us about how you're finding that balance.
Again, it's been a journey. You'll know yourself. I think the first kid and catapulting it into no sleep with where the business was a year ago was tough, if I'm honest. But it kind of all falls in line with our culture, right? So we talk about, we want people to enjoy where they're working.
Yeah.
We genuinely don't want people working crazy hours. Yeah. And we don't want them building loads of stress. Yeah. And that needs to come from Jack and I, right? So I leave the office in good time. I get to spend time with my family, and I think it's balance that's important. It's not perfect. But I think you just muddle through.
Yeah. It's so clear to me when you talk about fun and enjoyment. This is what makes you such a unique entrepreneur kit. For others, they don't necessarily prioritize fun. They don't prioritize the journey. They're very, very focused on the destination. I probably was more like that in my own previous ventures. So I think it's really admirable. And I think there's so much other entrepreneurs can learn from this idea of actually prioritizing fun and enjoyment, because life is short. What other lessons do you have for other entrepreneurs? Maybe there's someone sitting there watching this, inspired, and they want to start something one day, hopefully not a cereal company. Maybe there's someone who's on the journey but wants to, be even more ambitious in their vision and cementing their vision. What do you think you can share with them, in particular around building a company and scaling it, but also I think where you guys are excelling so much in terms of brand building and doing it in such a fun and unique way? What can you share? What are those kind of simple takeaways or lessons you can give to others?
We're so early on, so it's tough. I need to learn a lot more, I think. So I was always the guy who talked about ideas. The guy down the pub. Yeah. I was that guy who was like, I got this great idea, and I've got this whole business plan and never did it. And the honest truth of why I started this business is I watched my brother start a business. And that was the first time I was like, oh, this is possible. Yeah. Like, you can do this. Yeah. And so anyone who is that ideas, everyone has ideas, right? Yeah. Like if it is something you want to do, just do. Yeah. Like when you start a business, there's small problems, there's big problems, and then there's impossible problems you'll never solve. Yeah. You'll know the feeling. And if I look back to those first 2 years, those impossible problems you'll never solve, we solved. Yeah. And when you figure out that everything's fixable, everything's problem solving, it just builds momentum. The other thing we've really learned is just simplify. Every time we complicate it, business gets harder. Yeah. The answer is always
keep it simple.
Just simplify it. Yeah.
And talking about those moments where things weren't going as well as they are perhaps now, have there been moments where you thought, this is just too hard, I want to quit, I don't have that motivation? And how did you get through those?
I don't know if I've ever got there. We're 2.5 years in, ask me in a few more. Yeah. But there's definitely low moments. And Jack, my co-founder, is probably the biggest shoulder for a lot of that. And I think there's a lot to be said just for talking it through. Yeah. And it kind of comes back to what I said earlier, we're creating this cereal brand that's meant to remind people of their childhoods and implore them to imagine and create. Yeah. There's no point being stressed out doing that. Something's gone wrong in that journey. If we're this funny cereal brand, why would there be a burnt out wanting to quit founder? Yeah. And so simplifying things helps, but also just, it's what we're here to do.
I think it's one thing getting to know you, Kev, over the last few years is how much you surrounded yourself with advisors and good advice and good people. Talk to people about the benefit of surrounding yourself with people who've been there and done it, who can give you the benefit of their experience. I often say when I meet entrepreneurs, the best advice is to ignore every bit of advice, but to listen, but to forge your own path and to listen to the bits where you think it's going to be valuable. But you guys have a great network of advisors around you. How have you forged that? And what lessons have you taken from that? And what advice can you give to others thinking about making sure they have others with them on the journey?
There's so much we don't know anything about it. Put it this way, 10% of our business we understand, 90% we have to learn, basically. And so advisors for us was, if someone's willing to talk to us, like, we'll talk to them. And so you probably do a lot of that at the start, and then you start to realize like people who like listen more than they talk, who like really understand your problem, also have the experience, because we're trading from like complete uncertainty. Okay, we worked in careers, we know the industry, but we've never done this before. And so learning from people who have really, like, I remember when you and I first met, I think we went for lunch and we had this really good chat. And then at the end, I sort of mentioned, well, cash is getting a bit tight. I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
Cash is getting a bit tight, but we'll be fine. And you're like, no, that's your number one problem. And that was like, and I've had moments across business where someone just like snaps you out of it.
Yeah.
And as long as you listen and take action, great. But I always remember that lunch.
Well, at least I can be helpful.
Yeah.
Talk about the future of Surreal. What does it look like? You guys are on a tear right now. I think it's, I understand, dominating in the UK, which is, cereal in itself is this huge category ripe for disruption. How do you think about the future? How do you think about international expansion? Because that's something that in particular excites me, is watching entrepreneurs build in the UK, where I think we have this incredible creativity and know-how. But sometimes we lack the confidence to take brands outside of the UK and international. So talk about how you think about the future of Surreal, and also with that kind of international lens.
Future of Surreal, we want to create a brand that like really connects and like properly disrupts this category.
Yeah.
And we're fairly open about us. To us, that means like taking on mainstream cereal, which is no easy task. So I think we focus on going deep in the UK market for that. We are aware enough to know we've got lots we need to do here.
Yeah.
I think where like the role of brand is really important is when you want to stretch. Yeah. And that's geographic extension or product or category extension. Yeah. So we're open to all of that. But I think we always focus on like nail the UK market and nail the brand. Like create a brand that like means something to someone, because if you don't have that, it's very hard to replicate in another category, let alone in another geography.
Yeah, got it. What's the future for you, Kit? What do you want to get out of being an entrepreneur? I think it's, I think about entrepreneurship as a personal growth story with a business on the side. How do you think about entrepreneurship? What do you, if you fast forward 10, 15, 20 years from now, where do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Happy, hopefully.
Happy. Yeah.
The term entrepreneur always sits a bit funnily with me. I think maybe that's where I'll aspire to get to, but what does good look like for me? Building a great business with great people. And one of the things I would love is if Surreal could create a place where new founders come out of it. Like from where we work, Vice Coco, there's a whole cohort of brilliant founders. Yeah. And that's not by chance. Yeah. That's by culture. Yeah. So that would be real success in terms of what I want to do. I don't know. Yeah. I'm pretty open. Food and drink for now, I love. But I love the idea of doing something else in time.
I heard something recently from a founder saying that when they address their team, they say, it's a privilege to have you here. I hope you stay forever, but I'll be most pleased when you will leave and start your own companies. Yeah. And I think in this day where more people are feeling entrepreneurial, people want to start their own ventures, I think being in a startup before you're ready to start your own, I think is just the best way to learn. You had it in Vita Coco. I certainly had it in my own experiences. I think it's brilliant when you have a leadership team and founders that really nurture the entrepreneurial spirit within the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Surreal Mafia, almost like the PayPal Mafia of past, but the Surreal Mafia in a few years where all of your team goes off to start companies.
Yeah, but you need it, right? You need a bunch of mini founders in your team. Like when you're as small as us, like what do people need to be good at? They need to problem solve. Yeah. They need to be unflappable and they need to be like positive thinkers. Yeah. Like it's essentially what most founders are. You need it in your team. You need, like, no one has clear roles. Yeah. Problems are the only constant. Yeah. So you need someone who's just knocking them down, comfortable with it. And so I think you're going to attract someone who'll want to do it themselves one day, hopefully.
And I think startup cultures and values are really an extension of the founding team. And it really feels like you've done that. So your values are an extension of you and Jack ultimately. Last couple of questions for you, Kit. What advice do you have for others? We've talked about advice for building brands. But if there's someone sitting there today going, I want to start something, and perhaps don't have that confidence to do so, what can they do to get into a mindset of getting out and doing it, making something happen? What advice would you give them? If someone was sitting in the room with you, what advice would you give them today?
Just do. And this is because I think we spoke about it earlier, I was the guy who didn't.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of spoke about it, but the minute you start trying, things start to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not linear.
Yeah.
But you look back in a month, you're like, holy crap, like, how did we end up here? And if you're like positive about it, willing to solve problems, and like can keep the perspective that, like, we always talk about it, right? We are getting bigger. We're still tiny in comparison to Kellogg's, right? And so fundamentally, nothing we do should matter that much. And so you just take risks. You just do stuff. If something lands, great. You find the next like growth trajectory. If it doesn't work, like we think about it, like if you put a post out on Instagram, no one likes it.
Yeah.
One, no one likes it, so it's got no reach. Two, you can delete it, like if it's that bad. Yeah. So I think that having the mindset of like nothing's permanent, just try, just do, can unlock a lot of opportunity.
I think that low ego, which you have in abundance, I think is incredibly helpful in building companies. You say, not being afraid to just try something. You know, so many people don't start because they're worried about what other people are going to think of them. And ultimately their ego stops them, or a confidence issue stops them. And I think keeping that, that ego very low and realizing that actually most people don't care, just try something, I think is very powerful, because action, as you say, is a very magical force. The moment you just get out in the world and start doing things, stuff happens. I think it's great advice. Last question. If you weren't building a company, if you weren't building Surreal today, what would you be doing otherwise?
I shouldn't know the answer this quickly, but and my friends laugh at me about this, but I would have a woodworking studio, and don't ask me why. So I've never built anything in my life, let alone something at wood, but for some reason it has just lodged in my mind. I think my ambition probably exceeds my talent. In fact, actually, that's probably a good general way to summarize me. But there's something cathartic about the idea.
You're absolutely right. Making stuff with your hands is this lost art. I feel it too. This idea that you want to make something real and put it out in the world, but you don't want to you want to create something physical and tangible. I think it's we'll start a woodwork studio together maybe one day, Kit.
I'm laughing, so I struggle with the Nike.
Okay, maybe we won't start that. That won't be the next business. Kit, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure, sir. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.